All right. Hi, my name is Kaylin McLaughlin. I'm with CalFresh Healthy Living UCCE for the Central Sierra Cluster. I'm a Community Education Specialist 3.
Hello, everyone, and I'm Alejandra Giron, also CalFresh Healthy Living, UCCE Central Sierra, El Dorado.
And we are with the Direct Ed and Facilitator Work Group expands across the state. So we have some really cool slides to talk about direct education strategies. So this is all participatory. So can anyone tell me what is wrong with this photo? Yeah. No engagement? Yeah. I saw a hand in the back. Yeah, no one's in control, someone looks bored, what else? Not a safe space? Yeah. So is there maybe something as a direct educator that we could do to help mitigate this disaster? We can all agree this looks like a classroom disaster, right? And we can probably all agree we've been into a classroom before that looks just like this. So today we'll talk about some strategies that Alejandra and I have used personally when we do direct education and outreach in our communities.
Okay, so some of the things that we go over first is the trust. Create and have a welcoming, safe space, inclusive environment, participate, use hands-on learning activities, and follow state implementing agents, approve curricula and guidance, and then the facilitate. Encourage participants to set a goal, using new information and skills learned.
So we can agree that there's many different ways to approach direct education and the best way to manage your classrooms, but some of the things when we were throwing around ideas, the three main topics that kept coming up were the three: trust, participative, and facilitate. If you don't have a trusting environment where your participants feel safe regardless of their age, they're not gonna feel very welcomed, they might not even return to your session, or they just might step back and take themselves away. Therefore, they won't be as participative, they won't engage, they won't get to get those hands-on learning skills. And if you don't facilitate enough where you can encourage that participation, then are we really doing direct education?
So for the first one, I work mainly with youth, so I'll always do a well-being check, meaning when the students are coming to me, or if I go to their classroom, the first thing that I will let them know is like, how is your day going? Everyone has different days. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good. Even for us as adults, we have our days. So always being able to ask them how they are. I've gotten to the point with my students where they're coming to my class, they're able to freely express like, hi, Miss Alejandra, or hey, Miss Ale, today's not a good day. So then that way they're giving me a heads up, and I'll be able to have the lesson more appropriate to that student, so they can also feel inclusive and can also still participate even though they might be a little bit off for the day.
Yeah, and so why this is important is, so earlier we had some fantastic women who talked about accommodations. There's also things like adaptations and modifications you will make as a direct educator. And that's important because if our students aren't feeling up to it and you plan for a group activity, is it very beneficial for those students who are not feeling like they want to communicate to be in that group? That could just transcend into something that, they might express emotional behaviors, and that might turn into something we don't want it to be. We want our classrooms to be fun. So that's a good way to accommodate that individual. Instead of making them do the group work and forcing them, maybe have them step out and do the activity themselves. So making sure your activities can be done in multiple different facets, and they're still gonna learn the same, but it accommodates the different stuff that everyone experiences in their day-to-day lives. We also have group agreements. Has anyone ever done group agreements before they start a lesson? Yeah, have you only done this mostly with youth? Has anyone done it with adults before? So group agreements can work in both aspects of youth and adults. Now the agreements might look a little different depending on your age group. My group agreements for my adults look very different than they would for our youth, right? For youth, they're usually, so this is from Alejandra, this is from one of her snack clubs, so her kids actually write their agreements on this board, and so it's in their own penmanship. In my adult groups, it looks a little different. You know, we'll say we will try our best to be on time. That allows for accommodations when life gets busy, we run a little late. Respect is a big one. To participate is a big one for my adult groups. And obviously with youth, it's gonna look a little different. So for Alejandra's, they have, you know, help one another, be kind, be respectful, listen. And so group agreements set a really good precedent in your class, especially if you're doing series where we're agreeing to this, and it can actually make the biggest difference in behaviors amongst your students. And so sometimes it's perceived that these might take a really long time to do. Alejandra, how long does a group agreement take for you?
At the most, probably 3 minutes. They all come up with their own rules, and I think 3 minutes is, I think I'm exaggerating, because they have the rules that they can come up with real quick.
Yeah, and they also might have classroom ones. So their classroom rules, we want to make sure those also transcend when we come in. You know, we're the fun teachers, and we know the kids get very excited when they see us. And so they get a little too excited sometimes, which can cause disruption. We want to make sure that that transcends when we also host our lessons as well.
Then we have lesson goals. The students, like we mentioned before, sometimes my kids might not be having a good day. So if they can set one goal for that lesson, even let's say they cut the fruits. If that's the main goal they had set for themselves, then we accomplished something. Sometimes we cannot finish the entire lesson, and that's okay, as long as they have a goal set individually or as a group, then I think we've done our job for that day.
Yeah, and it's okay if you have multiple lesson goals or objectives you're trying to reach in the day, and it's okay to acknowledge that maybe you only hit one of those, as long as you hit one of them, so that as a group you feel like you accomplished something, right? We're all busy, sometimes we're not in the mood, and we try our best to participate, even as educators. And so as long as you have the one, you feel like you didn't lose out or like you didn't accomplish something and you get bummed out. The whole goal is to keep a positive mindset. This picture is from my adult group. So I serve senior adults with various disabilities. And so for this lesson, it was all about just learning how to cut with a knife. Even though we had many other objectives, sometimes that was the only takeaway that my clients had, and I'm totally okay with that. And the final one is acknowledging achievements. So how many of you have ever given a certificate at the end of your series? How do your participants feel when they get it? Does anyone want to share? They're excited, they feel accomplished. And so you can acknowledge achievements regardless of what age group you work with. They just might look differently, right? Adults might not care about a certificate, but maybe you can host a potluck or just a final session to acknowledge what we learned, or a final cooking day, right, where everyone builds components. For my youth, they usually get a certificate. They sometimes get a little badge to show they've completed it. And then the next question is, Miss M, when are we going to the next class? When can I get the next button? I want more goodies to take home. So acknowledging accomplishments is just a really generally nice way to end your series and acknowledge that they've learned so much, and you can do it in very different ways. This is our Cooking Academy certificate that we use with our youth. Our certificates change based on what curriculum we're using and kind of what the group looks like. And continual classroom assessment. So again, those words of adapt, accommodate, modify. It's so important to be able to pivot on the fly when you are working in direct ed, because sometimes we don't know the classroom we're going into. We don't know what's been happening. Maybe you just walked into a classroom and half the kids are out because they're sick. It's that time of year, right? So being able to adapt those lessons, change them up on the fly, super important. You allow for lesson activities to be completed in different but comparable ways, right? We want to make sure we keep on the curriculum fidelity, but there's different ways that we can achieve that fidelity in different ways that are more appropriate for different participants and their various needs. Listen to your participants. If they're telling you, I don't really like this activity, it's kind of boring, how could we make it better? How would you like to be involved more? Would you like to help run the activity? There's many different ways that listening to your participants can change up how you want to do your lessons. And then ask for guidance from your teacher or program. They are your local experts. They're gonna know your kids and the environment better than we do. So it's always important to ask. Maybe they have a different hand signal that works. Maybe you have different strategies that work to get your participants. It all depends. It's all about asking first. And there's our contact information. We have a few minutes. Does anyone have any questions by chance? You can come through with microphones if you do. All right, perfect. Well, thank you all very much.